So welcome to you. It's certainly an honor to have you here on our campus. And as you can see from the empty seat beside you, I'm going to now have the pleasure of introducing another guest for this portion of today's program. And this person will be the interlocutor of Mr. Chrétien, or as I thought to myself this morning, the Peter Mansbridge of the event. So Mr. Ray is a senior partner at Altius Clear Townsend, where he works with First Nations across Canada as a legal counsel, as an advisor, and as a negotiator. He served as Ontario's 21st Premier from 1990 to 1995, and interim federal leader of the Liberal Party from 2011 to 2013. He was named Queen's Counsel in 1984, appointed to the Privy Council of Canada in 1998, named an Officer of the Order of Canada in 2000, received the Order of Ontario in 2004, and Companion of the Order of Canada in 2015. In addition to his legal practice, Mr. Ray teaches at the University of Toronto as a Distinguished Senior Fellow at their School of Public Policy and Governance. And so welcome, and please take your seat.
I just received the Chrétien handshake. I appreciate that. Being an interlocutor for Jean Chrétien is sort of like being a bodyguard for Mike Tyson. Not sure it's necessary. But we've agreed to chat with you a bit about our friend Allan J. MacEachen, who both of us have known extremely well, and who many people in the audience know very, very well. But also to talk about public policy and how we're going forward. So, Prime Minister, give us your sense of Allan J. and how you got to know him and how you saw him work in Cabinet and in Parliament.
But I was elected in '63 and he was already there. You know, when Diefenbaker was in government, he worked for Pearson, developing the policies of the future and so on. So he already had quite a reputation when I arrived there, and he was known as a young man, very good parliamentarian. So I met him in '63, but I joined the cabinet in April 1967. He was already one of the senior guys in the cabinet for Pearson. He was the House Leader and Minister of Labor, and he was, for us, Member of Parliament, someone we had to work with. He was extremely a nice guy, but demanding. And, you had to be able to do the job when he asks you, and he will tell you if you didn't do it well. But we became friends because I became Minister of Indian and Northern Affairs at one time. I have many jobs in government, as they said. I was the guy that, when Trudeau will tell me when there was a pile of you-know-what, Jean, take the shovel, so he moved me around. But Allan was a good example for me because he had many posts in the government, always critical in the development of policies. But he was, for us, Mr. Nova Scotia, Mr. Cape Breton. Having to choose between the two, he would go for the latter. So I visited his riding. It was something fantastic for me. And I kept visiting his riding because he had some francophone in his riding. L'Île Madame, Gros Nez, Petit Nez, Arisha. And he was bilingual. He could speak English and Gaelic. and he got me there, and we go to in his riding. Every election, he would invite me to go in his riding. So that visit was very exceptional for me. Never been on Cape Breton. He got me to go to visit the national park, the islands. I remember I was invited at a lunch, and there was a lady who was working in Toronto, had the good sense to come back to Cape Breton, and she had a beautiful house. She served us. It's something I will remember until the end of my life. She was dressed with a skirt, a Scottish skirt, a blouse with fleur-de-lis on it, and as background, Scottish music and good food. Could not have it better than that. And that night, he invited me to go. There was a retirement of a politician, a doctor, who has been elected for years to the provincial house. And it was very unusual evening because my English was even worse than today. And and there were speeches in Gaelic. Allan spoke in Gaelic, this doctor spoke in Gaelic, and I got up, I spoke in French, so nobody understood me, but, it was a very good evening, and he gave me the idea to have a national park in my riding, and now you have La Mauricie National Park because of Allan gave me the idea. It was not philosophy. He said, Jean, there's good jobs in that. And people would come and, because what they mentioned, he was always preoccupied about the need of the people, the bread that they mentioned earlier. That was his preoccupation. He was always preoccupied by poverty and so on. And he has experienced that, and I've seen a lot of that in his youth, and it was reflected in his approach to politics.
Now, one story, because you and I shared an experience, and Allan J was very much involved, and I think probably people here might not have heard this story of what happened after Mr. Crosby's budget, because Mr. Trudeau, Pierre Trudeau, had already announced his retirement from politics, but at that time the House was a minority parliament, the Clark government, as we say, of blessed memory. I was, at that time, a member of Parliament as a New Democrat. I was the finance critic and moved a motion of criticizing the budget, which, if it was accepted, would have meant that the government was defeated. So you tell the rest of the story, because it's a good story.
So we had to vote on your motion.
Right.
And if we were to let Joe Clark win the motion, government would have kept going.
Right.
So we had to decide what to do. Trudeau had resigned as leader. We had no leader. We had called for a convention, and so we knew that if we were to vote with you, we could defeat him. But there's two elements to it. First, in the afternoon, it's not known, but the briefing room for the budget, the lock, I was there. And we were analyzing the budget before it was to be delivered. And the leader of the Socrate party was Fabien Roy, who was from Beauce, could not speak a word of English. And the bureaucrats have forgot to give anybody who spoke French. So I became the translator of the budget. So much that my English was so bad to understand everything that he got so afraid of what was to happen with that budget that he voted for us. But we didn't know as yet. But I had told Allan, because he was the House leader, that the Socrates were wavering. So in the afternoon, Trudeau had to tell us yes or no, to defeat the government or not to defeat the government. So Allan and I, we met in his office, and we waited. 5 o'clock, Trudeau was supposed to call us. And if he was not to call us, that meant that we were defeating the government. So for an hour, Allan and I were sitting in his office, not knowing if we were to be in election in a few hours from now, talking about all sorts of things, and kind of nervous because, it was only 9 months after the election, or less than that. So by 5 o'clock, no phone calls. Allan and I got up, we shook hands. I wish good luck, Allan, in your election, and good luck, Jean, and went in the House, and we defeated them. And, of course, Fabien Roy abstained. Because poor Fabien, he was a farmer, and I told him, the taxes on gasoline, Fabien, will cost $1,000 for every one of your farmer in Labos. And I'm telling you, when I will go campaigning in Labos, I will have a hell of a lot of fun with you. I don't know, but and it was true, it was to cost money to the farmers, probably that much. But but I colored,
more or less.
But it was colorful enough for him to be afraid. And that was the end of poor Joe. And
But not the end of poor Allan.
no, he stayed there, and we had the election. He got reelected again, and we had the Trudeau administration. He was very, very close to Trudeau. They loved to discuss policies together and so on. And, he was very much of a man who was, he was a left-wing liberal, if I can use that term. And
in my presence, anytime.
yeah. Because you, Bob, we discussed that many times. His father was the executive assistant to Mike Pearson when Mike Pearson was the Minister of Foreign Affairs. I don't know why you left the family to go across. But you came back eventually.
The prodigal son returns every once in a while.
But, Allan was very close to Trudeau, and he was a very good minister. And somewhat, we became the senior in government of Trudeau, both of us. And, he was a very good friend of mine and helping me. And in the House, he was extremely effective. He was a great speaker. He can make fantastic speeches. And he loved the House of Commons. It's a great institution. When you really get involved in the House of Commons, you debate with the opposition, and ideas are coming. Everybody would like to be there, so they want participatory democracy. But the best way to be in participatory democracy is to be elected. And we consult a lot with the people, but it's not everybody who wants to take the risk of being elected. And there was a debate about should we have political parties or not. I think that it's an extremely important vehicle to channel the views of the people. And Allan was a man of the writing. I mentioned he was Mr. Cape Breton. When you're elected, your writing is fundamental. Because if they don't vote for you, you're not there. And to have their confidence, you have to understand their problem. And Allan was the man who was preoccupied about job creation. And I had many discussions because I was a rural member like him. And we're very preoccupied with economic regional development. And he was very instrumental in the Trudeau government to have this we have a ministry that is, our friend Jean Marchand was the first minister. It was how can we create jobs, not all in Montreal and Toronto and Vancouver. And that changed the Maritimes. It took 50 years, but it changed the Maritimes. Now you're facing a problem, as they said, lack of manpower. When I was a member of Parliament visiting with Allan, unemployment was a terrible problem. They changed, they lost the mining in Cape Breton, and they had nothing left. And it was a daily problem for him, and he will do anything to change it. So, he was a fantastic politician, and very proud of his roots, being from Cape Breton and Nova Scotia.
Well, I think you've summed it up, Prime Minister, a great parliamentarian who understood the base of politics being, as Tip O'Neill said, local. All politics is local. Yeah. You've got to get elected to get there. A man of ideas, intensely committed to good public policy, loved debating ideas and loved debating good policy. Probably the architect more than anybody else of many of the great policies that have stood the test of time in this country with respect to manpower and health care. And a wonderful human being. And I think you've given all the audience a sense of Allan's qualities, and you've done pretty well yourself too. I think you have to recognize that you've made your own contribution.
But it's what all about politics. What it is a human being.
Yes.
So he was from Nova Scotia. Everybody knew that. But he will debate issues that were relevant to everybody, healthcare, the labor laws, were all his preoccupation. But, you know, and I was from Shawinigan, small town guy from Shawinigan. I could barely speak English at the beginning and so on. And we became very good friends because we had the same preoccupation of our electorate to be elected. And if you remember, like you were from Toronto, you know, people don't realize the time that you had to spend with constituents, you know, with the mix of the population in Toronto. That's something that if you're Quebec and you don't have the problem of immigration, neither in Shawinigan. We have a problem of people getting out rather than people coming in. So, you know, Allan will be very good friends with Walter Gordon, for example, and Mitchell Sharp, who are both from Toronto, who represented a very different background than Allan and I. And you were the bridge between the two gangs.
Well, this is the first time I've spoken with you where I got choked up at the beginning as well as at the end. But thanks for the opportunity to speak with you. It's been great.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.